Hi guys, today we are talking about 7Hz 71. It's a small portable dongle costing just $35. And yeah, let's see what a DAC of this price can do. So let me quickly get it out of this box and the packaging, which is small and simple, but that's kind of normal. And this is a small DAC dongle with a pre-attached USB cable. It ends in USB-C connector, and the manufacturer says it does work with Android phones, laptops, and also iPhones, but the Thunderbolt connector is purchased separately. So there is no specific Thunderbolt version. Aside from that, it's just a small dongle with no buttons on it and no controls, hardware controls. So everything that you do is connected to your smartphone, then the LED turns on, as you can maybe see or not, I'm not sure, and that's it. Volume control is done on your smartphone or laptop or whatever, and there are no options or settings, filter changing, etc., etc. And that would be a digital input, one USB-C connector, and the output is one 3.5 millimeters analog output. So there is no balanced connection here, but I believe that in this price point, single-ended output, like very common, very widespread 3.5 millimeters is a better choice. Because if you're buying a $35 DAC, you are probably not going to use headphones or earphones with balanced cables. So this is quite okay in my opinion, and basically everything that you need. A thing that might be interesting is that this DAC is using an AK chip. I'll put it on the screen. It's a 4377 model, and it has like a normal amount of power on its output. It's 70 milliwatts. It's not something to brag about, but it's not the lowest on the market either. There are DAC dongles with like 30, 50, so 70 milliwatts into 32 ohms is not at all that bad. Especially if we consider that this one is most likely going to drive quite sensitive in-ear models. Oh yeah, voltage is 1 volt, that's it. So don't expect to connect some big cans, high impedance cans or planars, something that demands a lot of current or voltage, and expect this to drive them at their optimum level. This is simply meant for driving smaller IEMs. And how does it do that? I mean, how does it sound while doing that? Well, I've tried a wide range of in-ears. I also tried some big headphones, and I can tell you that first thing that I've noticed is that this does sound quite powerful. And compared to hooking those same in-ears or headphones directly to my laptop or my desktop PC or my phone, I felt that through this dongle I did receive more power. There was a little bit more grunt and bass authority and more punch compared to a quite dynamically flat sound coming from those devices and their internal DAC chips. Yeah, because every device that has an analog output has a DAC inside. It has to be that way. It's just that those DACs are of a really low quality or use really little power. So basically, very little care, attention, and budget is spent on those analog outputs. So in my experience, this one sounded more powerful and it had more drive than any of these devices that I've tried. But moving away from the power and ability to drive headphones and in-ears, I can notice that this one sounds a little bit cleaner and a little bit more easygoing than any of these devices with their internal DACs. For example, even if I would connect a sensitive IEM model directly to my phone that has internal DAC inside, that sounds decent, but it sounds dynamically compressed and a little bit melted and somewhat flat. With this one, things suddenly start to layer a little bit better and be more separated from each other. Instead of hearing most of the tones, instruments and vocals like a part of some joint goo that plays together, you hear different tones, but they're somehow connected with some sort of thick veil. That all sounds a little bit more separated and pulled apart with this DAC. And I would say that that's a first level that qualifies such affordable device for being useful actually. It needs to sound better and a little bit more powerful, a little bit cleaner than the internal solution of the device that you are connected it to. And it does that. But I wanted to move to its tonality. When I listened to it, I've noticed that this DAC sounds a little bit bassy. The bass line and the mid bass, they're like prominent and oomphed a little bit. They sound punchy and weighty. Then mid-range is not that detailed and prominent and bright, but it's there. What is there of the mid-range sounds fairly clean, and it's not forward. As I said, it's not bright and attacky, but it's just nice, slightly laid back, clean mid-range. And highs, again, they are clean, but not particularly prominent or not that well extended. So you will hear information like cymbals and bells and things like that in songs, but they will sound a little bit darker, tamer, and more rolled off. And that led me to the comparisons. So I wanted to compare this one to Hidizs Sonata HD, a small cable DAC dongle that's costing roughly the same as this one. But when I started looking for it, I couldn't find that DAC dongle. And then I asked my girlfriend, like, have you seen that one? I remember she was using it to listen to her own earphones when she goes to work. And she was like, oh yeah, I cannot find that DAC, you know, I might misplaced it somewhere or forgot it at work. And yeah, Sonata HD is gone. I mean, I do love that woman, but that's why I'm not giving her any expensive DACs to carry around. She loses stuff all the time. But from what I can remember of Sonata HD sound, when I've used it on many of my devices that I still have in-house, and then I compare this one to those same devices, I would say that Sonata HD is a little bit more neutral sounding and flatter sounding. But it is also dynamically more flat. It doesn't have the same amount of kick and punch and juice in the bass line as this 7Hz DAC has. And while I felt that Sonata HD was an improvement in terms of just clarity and tone cleanliness compared to most internal solutions, I didn't feel that it brought much in terms of just dynamics and fun factor and just drive. But with 7Hz, I feel that tonality is darker and more bassy, but it's also punchier and has more drive. So yeah, I cannot tell you which one is better, especially without a direct comparison, but that's what I remember. And then I moved to a next comparison with the Moondrop Dawn that I still have with me. And this one is balanced, but I used same in-ear model, just changed cables. So single-ended when I'm using 7Hz 71 and balanced when I'm using Moondrop Dawn. And I've noticed that Dawn here is drawing more details from the recording. And that especially goes for higher frequency details. So for example, air from the recording, like the sensation of air around singers and around everything. Then that upper mid-range part, where lots of texture resides. For example, if you have a really nice female singer, female vocal, and it's full and nice and lush, but there's also some sort of dustiness or sandiness in their vocal, that will be better revealed with Dawn, while 71, 7 Hz, will gloss over it. It will liquidize the vocal, so you don't notice that texture equally well. It will just gloss over it. And when you connect that glossing over higher mid-range part with slightly rolled off highs, 7 Hz ends sounding darker overall and just bassier. Whereas Dawn, even though it has a pretty nice and full bass line, reveals more texture, even in the bass than in the mid-range. Then there is more highs, more light, more atmosphere in the song. So overall, it feels more open, more airy, and more detailed. And with that, I don't want to make this review really long because I don't think that we need it to be. 7 Hz 71 is a decent entry-level DAC, portable DAC, with a decent amount of power, pretty good drive and energy. It has darker tonality. It's a little bit bassier and slightly tamer up top. And I think that's actually quite a good thing. Let me explain why. Because most in-ears on the market that are probably going to be paired with a $35 DAC are quite thin and high frequency oriented. And then this DAC pairs really well with in-ears of that tonality. And I suspect that 7 Hz knew what they were doing there. They probably know what their target audience with this DAC is, and they're probably well aware of the type of in-ears that those users will have, and they'll hook them to this DAC dongle. And probably in that case, most of those buyers would welcome this kind of tonality. It would be like, wow, this sounds full, and it has drive, it has body, it sounds really nice. So that would basically be it. It sounded better than the internal DACs inside of my smartphone, desktop, or laptop. It brought a little bit more drive, energy, and clarity to the sound. It's not a huge difference, but in my opinion, it's enough to justify $35 spending. And that would be all, guys. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye.